Today, we're going to create a beautiful and interactive contact form with a dynamic border animation that adds a touch of creativity to your website. This form will feature a gradient background, smooth hover effects on buttons, and some subtle focus effects to make the user experience feel modern and engaging. The goal is to style this form with clean lines and a sleek finish that will impress visitors. Along the way, we'll explain how each CSS property brings the design to life, focusing on every detail to ensure you're comfortable with all aspects. If you're looking to enhance your skills in creating stunning forms, this tutorial is for you. Let's get started, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you love smooth animations and user-friendly forms. Let's kick things off by diving into the HTML. First, we have the body section, where all the magic happens. Here, we're adding a div with the class form container, which serves as a container for our entire form. It helps organize everything in one neat box. Inside the container, we include a form element with the class form. This is where we define all the form fields and their labels. Next, we add a div with the class form group. This div wraps each label and input text area pair to group them logically for easier styling. Inside this form group, we first add a label element for the email input. It's linked to the input field via the for attribute, which improves accessibility. Then, we add the input element with the type text and the ID email. The required attribute makes this field mandatory for submission. Moving on, we add another form group for the text area where users can tell us how we can assist them. This group also contains a label and a text area element. The cols and rows attributes define the size of the text area, and required makes this field mandatory as well. Finally, we add a submit button with the class form submit button. This button submits the form once clicked. To summarize, we've just set up the basic structure of our form with fields for an email address and a message. Let's see how it looks in the browser. Now let's dive into the CSS. First, we add the selector body, which styles the overall background of our project. We set the height to 100 VH to make sure the body covers the full height of the viewport. Then, we remove any default margin by setting margin to 0. Next, we set display grid to use grid layout and align items easily. To center the content, we add place items center. Now, let's set the font family to Poppins for a clean, modern look. Finally, we add a background color and set it to this color, giving the body a dark theme. Next, we add the selector form container. This styles the main container for our form. We set the width to 400 pixels. We give it a background with two gradients. The first is a solid color, and the second is a gradient that starts at a 45-degree angle. We use background size of 200% for a smooth effect. We also add a border of 2 pixels transparent to help define the container's edges. We apply padding of 32 pixels on top and bottom, and 30 pixels on the left and right for some space inside the container. The font size is set to 14 pixels for legibility. We display the form container as flex, which helps with centering the contents. We justify the content to center so everything lines up perfectly. The box sizing is set to border box to include the padding and border within the element's total width. We add a border radius of 16 pixels to round the corners. Finally, we add an animation called gradient with a duration of 5 seconds, easing for smoothness, and it loops infinitely for a dynamic effect. First, we have the keyframes for the gradient animation. We set the background position to 0%, 50% at the start. Then, at 50%, we move the background to 100%, 50%. Finally, we reset the background position back to 0%, 50% at 100%. This creates a smooth transition effect. Next, we have the form container button active selector. Here, we set the transform property to scale 0.95. This will shrink the button slightly when it's clicked, giving it a nice interactive feel. The transform property allows us to scale the button down by 5% when active, creating a subtle but effective effect. It's a simple touch, but it makes the button feel more responsive. This is all we need for the button interaction. Now, we add the form container form selector, which styles the form element itself. We set the display to flex, which allows for flexible layout. Next, we set the flex direction to column, so the form fields stack vertically. We add a gap of 20 pixels to create space between the form fields. That's it for this simple styling, but we're setting a great foundation. Now we focus on the form container. This is the container for our entire form. We set display flex to enable flexible box layout, and flex direction column to stack the form fields vertically. We also add a gap of 2 pixels to create a small space between each form group. Next, we target form container form group label. We add a margin bottom of 5 pixels to give it some space below the label. Next, we set the color to this color to give the label a neutral gray tone. We make the text font weight 600 for a bolder look. We also set the font size to 12 pixels to make it a bit smaller and neat. And that's it for the label style. styles, you can already see how the form elements are taking shape. That's the quick overview of the styles we applied here. Now we target form container, form group input, and form container, form group text area. We set the color to a color that makes the text stand out. We add padding of 12 pixels on the vertical and 16 pixels on the horizontal for some breathing room. Next, we add a border radius of 8 pixels to round the corners. We set the font family to inherit so it matches the overall design. Now we make the background transparent by setting background color to transparent. We also add a border of 1 pixel solid with this color to create a thin border around the input and text area fields. Next, we focus on the text area inside the form group. We set resize to none so that the text area cannot be resized. We also set the height to 96 pixels to give it a uniform size. Now we target form container, form group input placeholder. First, we target the placeholder text inside the input. We set its opacity to 0.5 to make it a bit faded and less prominent. Then, we target form container, form group text area placeholder. Similarly, we adjust the opacity of the placeholder text inside the text area to 0.5, giving it the same subtle appearance. Next, we style the form's input and text area elements when they receive focus. First, we add the selector for input focus and text area focus within the form container and form group. We remove the outline to keep the look clean. Next, we change the border color to this color to give it a sleek, modern highlight when focused. This adds that polished effect to the input fields and the text area, making them feel interactive and user-friendly. Now, let's style the form. We start with the selector form container, form submit btn. This targets the submit button inside the form container. First, we set the font family to inherit to match the parent's font style. Then, we set the color to this color for a soft gray color. We apply font weight of 600 to make the text bold. Next, we set the width to 40% to make the button a bit smaller. We choose a background color of this color to give it a dark, sleek look. We add a border of 1 pixel solid with this color to define the button's edges. For some padding, we set padding to 12 pixels, 16 pixels to give it space around the text. Font size is inherited from the parent element to keep it consistent. We add a margin top of 8 pixels for some breathing room above the button. Cursor is set to pointer to show interactivity. Finally, we add border radius of 6 pixels to round the corners and give it a smooth finish. Now, let's move on to the form submit button hover effect. When the submit button is hovered over, we change the background to this color and the border color to the same color. This creates a nice smooth hover effect that enhances the interactivity of the form. That's all for the CSS section. We've added some subtle hover effects to make the form feel more dynamic and user-friendly. Keep in mind that each property we added helps to elevate the design, creating a seamless user experience. To summarize, after applying all these styles, our form has a modern, sleek design with smooth transitions, an animated gradient border, and clear interactive states for the inputs and buttons. It's both functional and stylish. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial and found it helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more exciting web development content. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. I'll see you in the next one, and happy coding.